My name is Andrew Maher. I'm the Learning Management and Design Team Lead with UPIEA and UPIEA's Virtual Training Academy, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this session and also to introduce you to our presenter today, Sebastien Auguste. He's the Learning Management Systems Administrator with UPIEA, who joined us in February of 2021, if I'm not mistaken. Prior to joining UCSF, he worked as the Associate Director for Online Learning at the Association of International Educators. He's been an adjunct professor at John Jay College, Instructor Technology Specialist at Nova Southern University, and a technology instructor at the Dan Marino Foundation. So it's my pleasure to welcome you to this presentation today, and I'll pass the mic over to you, Sebastien. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending this session. You could be anywhere, but you chose to be here, so I appreciate you for taking that time. My name is Sebastien Auguste. I'm the Learning Management Systems Administrator with the University of California, San Francisco's Pandemic Initiative for Equity in Action, also called UPIEA for short. Today, I'm going to talk about our experience launching a new Moodle-based learning management system to support the state of California's COVID-19 community contact tracing program through a project called the Virtual Training Academy. I'll also talk about our experience developing the self-guided online training modules that were published on our new learning management system. And we hope that our experience and lessons learned will be of interest to other groups at the Institute for Global Health Sciences that are thinking about developing new or strengthening their existing online and remote training portfolios. We also hope this presentation will stimulate follow-up conversations about opportunities for collaboration and strategic planning in the areas of online learning, design, and management. I want to start off by looking at UCSF's pandemic. First, I want to start off by talking about UCSF's pandemic initiative for equity and action. Their focus areas deal primarily with workforce development, community engagement, health systems strengthening, and also global health security. These projects are all-encompassing, dealing with a lot of different groups, specifically in the California area. Some of the projects that UPIEA has worked on is a partnership with San Francisco Department of Public Health contact tracing training and support, technical assistance to local health departments through Genentech. They've also done Cultivate virtual reality training, and also Global Health Equity Fellows, as well as CDC Global Health Security, and finally the California Virtual Training Academy. So they've made sure to dabble and work with different groups to expand the reach. Now, we want to talk about the Virtual Training Academy. Now, this is a partnership between UCSF, UCLA, and the California Department of Public Health. This was established in April of 2020, and this was a response to the state's plan to train 10,000 case investigators and contact tracers. And in this current programming, what was done was work with core trainings, communities of practice, town halls, technical assistance, and pathways programs, and public health reserve corps. So all these different groups are being supported through this effort of the Virtual Training Academy. Now, as of right now, we have 11,000 learners going through our 5 core trainings. Now, what are those 5 trainings? The first one is CICT, and that's short for Case Investigation and Contact Tracing. We also have OMG, which is short for outbreak management. We have CH, which is short for cultural humility. We have school specialist. And then our final one that we offer is vaccine communications training. So of those 11,000 learners are in those courses. We also have at 1,800 hours of live trainings that have taken place since our inception, which is April 20th. Until this point, December 2021, sorry. We also have had 200 community of practice events where we've reached 26,000 participants. And this is not non-unique due to the fact that some learners do come back for more. So they attend one of our community of practice events and they want to find out what other opportunities there are and what other information is provided to them. So that is what that number shows. We've also have 8 direct technical support missions to local health jurisdictions. We have 41 early career pathway fellows. And then there also have been 2 journal articles and 10 conference presentations just on these areas. And we've received funding of 33 million within these 2 years that we've been in place. So from April 2020 to now, April 2022, we have received 33 million in funding. Now, I do want to stop here for a second. And at any point in time, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to type them in the chat. I won't answer them immediately. So I don't want to make sure I bring you up and then throw you back down again, but I will answer them at the end. So please don't feel that I won't answer the question that you have. Now, the question that we ask ourselves, and the question that you're probably asking as well, is why did we need our own learning management system? It's pretty simple. With so many learners and over 100 VTA staff working in the context of an emergency rapid response, there was a need for one singular place for all training and learning to take place. When we looked at the system we originally had, we used UCLA's Canvas system as one place that we offered 2 of our courses, and we are forever grateful to UCLA for supporting us on that aspect of things. It was something they did, and they did extremely well. But that was where 2 courses were. Another course was in Google Classroom, which was extremely helpful in the way that they structured their course. And then other courses used different systems that were either a part of UCSF or similar in that space. So all of these different groups came together to help UPIEA and the VTA Training Academy to offer these courses. So with that, it worked out well for us, but we realized that we needed that singular space for that aspect of things. One of the things that also came into fruition, or that we needed, was uniformity of the courses. So we want to make sure that we have custom branding, custom layouts, and we look at the user experience. We want it to be that if someone comes in from, let's say, case investigation, and they want to take the school specialist course, they would know that that design is similar in space, so they know exactly where to go to register, where they need to go to make adjustments, or where they will find materials. So having that universal design was extremely key for us in that aspect. And then after that, one of the things that we needed was data. I think we all know how important data is for our projects, our programs, and also just in general. With this singular space, we were able to get advanced reporting and monitoring monitoring and evaluation. This information was actually extremely helpful for us to strengthen our courses that we offered, but also to help us look at the areas that may be pitfalls for us. So having this all in one place was extremely helpful on that end. And then it also provided us with an opportunity to provide interactive content. So not just having the learners have passive experience, but a more active experience in multiple ways. So this singular environment provided us with the opportunity to enhance our use of adult learning styles, as well as technology that it was available within those spaces. Now, I talked about it earlier, but why not use existing learning management systems? Now, UCSF has a collaborative learning environment, but the only issue specifically in this area was that there was a barrier when it came to external audiences. In this instance, what happens is that if you don't have my access login information, you wouldn't be able to access the collaborative learning environment. But for the learners that did have my access and were able to use it, they were effective in its use. So it just had that one barrier that caused us to adjust our setup. There also was the limited options for customization. So though we have that uniformity with all of our courses that we're building, we want to make sure that each of these courses can provide the specific information they may need, whether it be an alumni section for their specific course, or if they needed another section for assignments that were taking place. We were able to make those slight adjustments for them to be more specific to what their needs were. And outside of those 5 classes, if we are working with other groups, they have their own requests, and they may need a custom course template. And with that aspect, that's where those areas provide that limitation. And then here's just the list of those other systems that we were using before July 2021. So like I said, UCLA Extension gave us access to their Canvas site for 2 of our courses. California Prevention Training Center also provided the option. And then as well, we used Google Classroom. So all 4 of these groups came together and supported us during our initial launch. And quick shout out to them. Thank you. I do want to make sure we give you all of the thanks on that end when it comes to that space. Now, before we go into this aspect, I do want to see if we can jump into some polls, just because I want to see where everyone is at when it comes to learning management systems. I believe the first one is
I got it, Sebastien. It's up and running.
Okay, perfect. So which
responses are coming in. I'll let you know when they're almost.
Perfect. So the first one is, which of any of the learning management systems have you used? We see right now that Blackboard is in the lead, and that has been the case for a few decades, I would say. Back when I was in school, Blackboard was the place to be, and now there are more up and coming groups that are coming into play as well. So with that, we see that 34% of you have worked with Blackboard, and then 26% of you have worked with Moodle. So this is even better because you already know the system that's in place. And then of course, Sakai and others, I'm gonna throw Canvas in there because I'm guessing that's what it is. And then 23% has said more than one on the list. So perfect, thank you. So we have a second question. And this one is just on experience. So how would you rate your level of experience with learning management systems? Okay. All right, I think we've reached a tie between novice and moderate knowledge. So this is really good. One of the things I want to let you know, just as an insider aspect of things, once you know one LMS, you know them all. So that's the great thing about it. If you are a novice or moderate, or you have moderate knowledge, you'll be able to parse that between the different groups. So it's just finding specifically where that information is added, but if you know one, you know them all. So that's the great thing about learning management systems. So in this case, I just said, right, if you know one, you know them all. So why would we choose Moodle, right? When we could go to Blackboard, we could go to Canvas, any of those other options. Well, the first reason is because it's open sourced. And what does open source mean? That means that within the learning management system, anyone, any developers, whether they be within UCSF, within any of the different universities of California, or if they are just some guy that lives in Minnesota, they would be able to create different tools or create different products within Moodle that can be used by anyone. All you would need to do is download or upload that source code to your version of the LMS. So this is actually a great experience, because if, let's say, we need something specific, we can create it ourselves rather than waiting for someone to create it for us. And it's supported by a global network of developers and Moodle service providers. So we can work with different groups to find those specific needs we may have for whichever area that we do provide this service. It is flexible and feature rich. So there are multiple versions of different aspects, and those plugins are customizable in some instances. So that makes it helpful. One of the things that we do want to make a note of is in the US, in most cases, you'll hear a lot of universities talk about Blackboard and Canvas. But in the international community, you hear Moodle being talked about more often than not. And that is because of its international recognition as an LMS and that open source aspect of it. While some of the other ones may need, you may need to go through the group like Blackboard or Instructure to make any changement or adaptations on that side. Now, one of the things that we do want to make a note of, Moodle could technically be free, but I want to make sure we throw a giant asterisk on that because you need to have specific things to make that the case. For example, you would have to have your own server to host your instance of Moodle in that case, and also your own IT staff to manage those servers. And in our case, we do not have the staff or the time to do all of that. So we use a Moodle service provider to manage our version of it. Some of the Moodle service providers do certain things, such as manage a Moodle cloud hosting, Moodle implementation and setup, and also Moodle integrations and custom development. So they can work with you on all of those different aspects of the Moodle environment that you're creating, so that you have a guide really as you're developing your service. Now, UPIEA and the VTA does not have the capacity to be fully independent of a Moodle service provider. However, we built our internal team capacity where we're able to keep an eye on the services in-house, but we'll talk about that more later in the presentation, but I did want to make sure we noted that. Customization was extremely important to us, and that flexibility is why we chose Moodle in that instance. Now, right here, I just want to show you kind of how we reached 100%, right? We started at 0 during January and February, where we interviewed Moodle and a few other LMS service providers just to find what would be the right fit for us when it came to an LMS system. Once we met through it and we parsed through those different providers, within March to April, we kind of made our final decision of choosing Learning Pool, and we set up that contract. Now, the contract took a bit of time, but by June, we developed the branding and had the initial setup. So we had our meetings with Learning Pool to structure out how we wanted the course to look, not the course, the environment to look, and how we wanted each of those aspects to be designed. And then what we worked on was migrating those trainings from the old systems. So we knew that those courses worked perfectly well in those other learning management systems that were used previously. So we didn't want to start from scratch, right? Why recreate the wheel immediately into a migration? So what we did was we took those courses and we migrated them over exactly as how they looked in their previous learning management systems. And from there, we then launched the LMS. And this was our bridge period. Now, within that bridge period, the great thing about it was it wasn't too drastic of a change for our learners. So if they had taken the course, let's say 3 months before, and then they went into this new one, it was a different design, but everything looked exactly the same. So that bridge was a great start for us as we moved forward. But as we handled this bridge aspect of things, we started doing online course development and created these new blended trainings. And I do want to talk more about this blended training, but I can't give you all of the secret sauce immediately, right? I have to wait it out a bit. And then in September and October, we had the online course development sprint. So this is where full steam ahead, we were working to make sure that we had everything ready for our November launch of our new and improved courses, blended courses, which had both an asynchronous and a synchronous aspect to them. And then we began our pilot evaluation. So all of November and December, we gained some knowledge to see what worked, what didn't, and how we could improve on those aspects for the next coming year. Now, our approach to online learning course development. So like we said in 2020 to 2021, we had a great reliance on external vendors. So specifically Growductive and Learning Pool for course authoring in that aspect. And we also had an outside video producer that worked on the video content for some of the different aspects of our courses. So introduction videos, interaction videos between, let's say, a investigator and someone in California. All those different videos were worked on by that person. Now, this isn't something that we wanted to, this was a short-term fix, but we wanted to look at the long-term aspect of things. So then that is why we would say from April or February 2021 until now, we've been making adjustments to build our internal capacity. So we've brought in an LMS administrator. We've brought in a senior instructional designer who works with the development of those courses, as well as the improvement of those courses. Because just because we have a great product that we're offering, that doesn't mean that we are done. We want to continually build our programs to be better each offering. We also have a learning design and management specialist who's a jack of all trades. They are able to support everyone in many different ways, whether it be support, whether it be the development of some of these courses, as well as the LMS administration aspect as well. And then we have our learning design and management team lead, who looks to the future and helps us to guide us where we need to go, right? Our captain on the path to where we are supposed to achieve, I would say, yes. We also have an accessibility working group. And one thing I want to make note, and I know I'm gonna get a bit sidetracked here, but not just in academia, but throughout different areas of our society, accessibility is looked at as an afterthought, right? Once we get a request for it, that is when everyone starts to look at how we can make things accessible or how can we improve on that accessibility option. One of the things that we wanted to do as we built out our courses, as we built out this system, is making sure that everything was accessible from the beginning. So making sure that we use tools that were compliant, making sure that we had an accessibility working group that was able to support our program leads, our learning and design management team, as well as provide support to other groups as they start to look at their content in a different light. How do we make this accessible from the start? And then we can improve on that as we move forward, because the same thing as we talked about with the courses, just because we have it the first time around doesn't mean that we're done. We have to continually improve on what we offer. And that is why the accessibility working group has been essential to us as we've built out this program. And then of course, I would say one of the most important, if not the most important, is the course leads. They worked with us tirelessly to build out these programs. They thought about every aspect of things, from the learner's experience to the facilitator's experience to just general experience. And this was helpful for us as we developed the system to make sure that everyone was included and it was inclusive, as well as making sure that everything was effective in its approach. That was one of the key aspects of those areas. So everyone from that internal capacity area has been essential for us to get forward. So again, side note, thank you. We would not be here without your great support on this end. Now, just a little bit more information on the accessibility working group. They've been around since 2021, and they were created in response to the values of UPIEA and the VTA Plus and the needs that we wanted to have for our learners. And they were creating an environment that was accessible for people with disabilities and improve the environment for all. So one of the notes to come to is that sometimes learners may not speak out about their needs, but we want to make sure we have that available to them, even if they don't bring it up. And also there may be others who still want to use those tools for their learning, and we want to make sure those are available. And they also collaborated with us, the learning management and design team, to review the learning materials, the live trainings, and the software to make sure that they were up to par with what was necessary for our learners. Now, I talked about so many different groups, right? I talked about course leads. I talked about live training production. I talked about facilitators. There were subject matter experts. There were so many different areas that came to play, and all parts of it were essential. Without each of these different groups that are here, we wouldn't have reached the point that we are now. So all parts are essential and not afterthoughts. So I just want to make sure we make a note of that and give each group a chance to shed light on them. Now, I'm going to stop here, and what I want to do is I want to provide a live demo of our system. So give me 1 second as I jump into that aspect of things. So, as you see here, I didn't know this was going to be here. Here's our main page. As you notice, it has the login and create area. We have our courses that we offer, as well as our communities of practice and other courses that we provide. We also have information about us and our accessibility contact, as well as who our collaborators are. Now for a learner, like I said, that userability, right? For a learner, all they would do is press create an account, and then they would see right here, create a new account. So for the learner, they only have 2 clicks they need to take to get into the actual like registration aspect of things. So that makes it very simple for them. And you'll see here what we've done is we've just provided these red icons to let them know where the information is essential. And some of this information we ask for is actually important for that specific group. So all those areas are provided here. On my end, because I already have an account, I would just press I would sign in at this point, and you would see that I automatically am signed into the course. Now, one of the things to highlight is that we have different avenues for the actual enrollment of a course. You can either do self-enrollment, where all a learner has to do is click on the specific course and just press enroll. You can have it be more of a walled garden, right? Where only a specific few are able to take those courses. What we can do is we can provide password protected courses so that if someone clicks to enroll, they have to provide the password given to them to be able to access it. And then if we want a system that is completely off the grid, where no one can access it unless they have directly been added to it, we can provide manual enrollment to a course. So those are those aspects of registration that are available. So let's just jump into one of these courses to see what it looks like. So right now, what you'll see here is that we are in the case investigation and contact tracing course. You'll see that on the left side, there's a completion progress bar. You'll see right here, there's announcements at the top, but there's also a welcome area, as well as a disclaimer on COVID guidance of what's happening. You'll also see that we have a registration area for learners to register, and they also take a registration questionnaire just to get a bit more information on them. That data is essential for that group and for that team as they go forward on that side. You'll see that we have this pre-course survey. Now, why am I talking about this pre-course survey, right? The importance of this is that it actually opens up the whole course to the learner. Until they've completed or they've started this pre-course, until they've completed this pre-course survey, everything else in the course is hidden from them. Once they've completed it, automatically that content becomes available. And this is helpful for us so that learners complete the different aspects that are necessary, right, for the course in that area. And you'll see that we have, course overview, which provides this information. And we also have a space for self-study content. And what we use in this case is Articulate Rise. So I'm going to actually jump in and show you what that looks like. So if we go to one of these courses, let's say we were in one of the classes and this was a lesson, you would see that it's actually scrollable. So let's say I go in and I preview it. You'll see that it has these areas that really gets the learner to actually continue with the space. We want to make sure that learners are actually engaging with it and not just playing this in the background and being passive in that learning experience. You'll see as well that we have different ways for them to interact with the space where they may want to find out a bit more, so they can click to find out that information. You'll see as well that we have different areas or different ways of providing this information to them with links as well as images. We also have drop downs, which provide us with more information on that end of, on that side of things. And then of course there's knowledge checks, right? To see how a learner does in this case. So as you see here, I struggle with some of these questions. Oh, I think I got it. I spoke too soon. So as I'm going through this, you'll see that it gives me It lets me know if I'm getting them correct or not, and then I can go from there. So if we go back here, you'll see we even have a space for live sessions. And these areas are connected to that self-study. So once they've completed the work within the self-study, then they then have access to those live sessions, as well as the post-course assessment. We also have an area for record of completion. And these certificates are all, or these records are all stored within the learner's account. So if at any point they wanted to, they can go to their profile and be able to see all of the records that of completion that they've received for all of the courses throughout their time in this space. Now from here, I'll jump back into the presentation. And you'll see here, we had evaluations of the blended learning pilot from November 2021 to January 2022. And you see that from that list, what did they like? Everything was clear, informative, and the content was very useful. That ability of mixing the asynchronous with the synchronous, so that self-study aspect with the live sessions were helpful for them on that side of things. And within some of those courses, those videos, right? The introduction lectures that gave them an overview, as well as the role play demonstrations that took place. And then you saw as well that there are interactive contents, as well as the variety of learning methods, and also the visual diagrams that were provided. Now, we don't want to just talk about the positives, right? There were some things that they didn't like. They had issues with the length of the modules. They had issues with some of the information overload, right? And the repetitiveness, as well as challenges with navigation of some aspects of the area. So with all of these negatives, this actually helps us, right? This benefits us because then we can go back to the drawing table and see what we can improve on. How do we shorten the modules, or maybe section off the modules in this case? It also gives us the aspect of confirming why we have repetitiveness, right? Because we want to make sure that we get it through. So if something does repeat, we may say, okay, that makes sense. But then we look at it as a group and we say, was it essential that this be repetitive, right? We want it to stick. So if that works, this is why we want to make those notes. We also want to look at that navigation. So if there's challenges with navigation, we want to go back and say, okay, how can we make this even simpler for the learner? So all of these aspects we do take to heart as we update and improve the system each time. And as you see here, we just had from that same pilot, we have just some data that shows that in most cases, we were above 75% with approval of all of these different aspects. If we want to be very clear, I want to say even at 70% of strongly agreed learners when it came to these aspects. So ease of use, clear communications, easy to navigate, effective way to learn, convenient way to learn, high quality content. All of those areas were essential and were highlighted as key areas that they enjoyed within the course. Now, lessons learned. We're not going to sugarcoat it. The initial implementation was not easy, but it was worth the effort because from now it's more improvement rather than starting from scratch. We would say that the hardest part is behind us. There may be some parts that may create more challenges for us, but the essential aspects have been taken care of. Now, setting up the new contract with the Moodle service provider was time consuming. It did take a lot of time. I know that in the timeline that we provided, we said like March, April, but it took longer than that in that instance. And it always will be the case that these initial contracts do take time, but we've already handled that that contract, and now it's a lot simpler. So if others were interested in jumping on board, you wouldn't have to worry about that process. Once established, the tech support from the service provider has been robust. So they've been able to work with us on a few different requests that we've had, especially with the initial setup. As we spoke to each of the course leads and the different groups, we brought their requests or concerns to them, and they've been able to work or continue to find alternative options for those aspects. So that was one of the key areas. And they also worked with us on the branding. So making sure that we got our message across in an effective way. So they were helpful in that instance. Now, the integration of recurring LMS activities into the existing team workflows took time and definitely took many iterations. So as we make those updates and changes, we do have to develop them as well. So I would never say that we're done. We're always a work in progress. And if we ever were to say that we're done, I think you would have to worry at that point. And then, of course, the creation of a standard course template for the LMS was a collaborative process. So it wasn't just the LMS administrator or the learning and the learning design team creating it, but working with the course leads, working with accessibility, and continuing to work with them to make sure that we enhance those courses so that if there is any gaps, we're able to find them and support them. And then our vision for the future. Like I said, we want to continue to improve and simplify the user experience throughout the LMS. We want to continue to build our team capacity to apply best practices for adult learning theory in the design and delivery of the self-paced and live trainings. And we also want to explore opportunities for collaboration in learning design and management with other groups in IGHS and UCSF as a whole. In many cases, we sometimes are siloed, and it's not something that happens intentionally, but just a way of the land. So we want to make sure that we open our doors and let others come in and see what we're doing and see how we can work together in that space. And as we let people in and work with others, we want to create a community. And this space is a way to enhance the design of our programs and that we offer. And we're not looking at it from a small scale of just like University of San Francisco and saying that's great, or state of California and that's great, but we want to look at it from a global standpoint. How can we affect the most people around the world? So we want to make sure that we open our doors to that and provide that opportunity for everyone involved here at UPIEA, IGHS, and UCSF. Now, I do want to talk about money because cash, well, no, I'm gonna stop right there. I was gonna say cash rules everything around me, but I'm gonna leave it at that. But you'll see here just a rough estimate of costs for new programs. So for that initial branding and site setups, to be specific to, let's say, your project, it would be $3,500 for that instance, and it would have its own direct link with its own branding structure in that aspect of things. You see here our per user annual license numbers. So if you were thinking that you were going to have 1,000 active users, that is the price. If you believed you were going to have 20,000 active users, that is the price. And if you thought you were going to reach way more than 20,000, I would ask that you contact either myself or Andrew Maher to find out, Andrew Maher, just to find out more information on what alternatives are available to you for those requests. And then, of course, we have the learning and design and development, which coincides with some of the salary support for those specific groups, as well as the tools that we use. In this case, we talked about it earlier, Articulate Rise, as well as Adobe Creative Cloud. And then as well, for the learning management system and administration and support, these are where that support comes in as well. So that's covered in a more detailed conversation if you are interested. Now, I don't want to end just at that point, but I do want to make sure that we highlight all the different groups. So UCLA Fielding School of Public Health, UPIEA, UCSF Pandemic Initiative for Equity and Action, California Connected, CDPH, the Curry International Tuberculosis Center, California PTC, UCSF Center for Excellence in Primary Care, and then UCLA Extension. All of you have been essential to us reaching this point now, and we would not be here without your support and your help. I don't think enough words can be said for how thankful we are for you. So thank you. That is all I can say. So I do want to make sure we highlight their importance. Thank you for listening. I know I spoke a lot of information, and it may you may need to take some time to digest it, and that's okay. But we'll open it up to questions and discussions. So what I'll do right now is I'll start going through some of the information that's been brought up in the chat. But thank you for attending our brown bag this morning.
And thanks so much, Sebastien. I'm going to switch to gallery view if you'd like to stop sharing your screen. And we've had a couple of questions that have come in through the chat. Thanks very much. I just want, in case you can't see the reactions, we've got some applause coming in from the chat, and it's a thumbs up. I apologize, I assume this is not your name, but Skigeles, I see your Zoom name, but you had a question, and if you're willing, we'd love to have you come off mute and send it over to Sebastien.
Hi, Sebastien. Thank you. Very interesting presentation. I'm Susan Kegelis. In a different domain having to do with HIV prevention, my team and I developed a system, and part of it was a manual, and we put it all online, and it had lots of photos and lots of examples, and layout was really nice, and we got lots of good feedback about it. But what I found is that people don't seem, now the people who would read it are typically young people in their 20s, staff at organizations, and they don't want to go to a website and read through things. And so I feel like we're at we want Insta knowledge now, just like we get Insta information and everything else. So how does it go when you guys are having people read your modules, and how do you present those so that people do want to? And I recognize there's a difference between the urgency of COVID and the urgency of HIV prevention these days.
Yes, so that's actually a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. One of the things that that's an issue is how learners actually learn, right? In many cases, the way it was in the past was I gave you information, you read it, or you looked over it, and that was the case, right? I saw you. If I saw you again, that was great. If I didn't see you again, it happens. But what we wanted to do was build more engagement and find different pathways for them to learn. So with the RISE modules, what we did, or the implementation that we had, was the first aspect of it was a video, right? Going over basic aspects that grabs their attention because they're actually watching, like you said, Insta, right? There's videos playing on TikTok and all those other tools. So we're not doing TikToks, of course, we're not doing dances, but we have that video that catches their attention. And then right after that, we go into text, right? So they're gonna have to do a bit of reading. But then we don't just have a long line of text, we do have stop points where we have engagement, right? Whether it be, drag and drop, where they're using their phone the same way they play a game to drag, the right answer to those specific areas, or answer multiple choice or short answer questions and get a response back, where if they do the multiple choice, it actually gives them the explanation on what they've done right and what they need to improve on, or just letting them know, like, here are some things to keep in mind after you've made your answer on that case. So those are just 3 of those examples, right? We have tactile learning happening. We have that auditory learning with the video, we have the visual learning happening in those different aspects. So we make sure we try to pinpoint all of those different parts so that that learner is engaging in different ways, which has them not say, well, I don't want to just sit here and read, right? Because that passive experience isn't interesting to them anymore in a sense. So we want to make sure that we provide active learning that really causes them to think about what's happening on that end.
Great, thank you.
So, and Sebastien, I can follow up too. I think one of the really interesting things that we saw from the data Sebastien presented in feedback from our learners is that while we
give it 1 second as Andrew comes back on, but
text content.
Oh, sorry, Andrew, you dropped off for a second.
Oh, I apologize. I'm going to turn off my video and just say that we're actually now, having finished our first evaluation of our pilot, looking for even more opportunities to scale back the amount of text content and build in more of those interactive learning experience that Sebastien had just mentioned. And so a great learning experience for us is that even though we set out to have more interactivity and different learning styles, that there's still efficiencies to be gained and kind of even more opportunities, I think, for catering to different learning styles. So definitely a lesson learned from our first go around last year.
Perfect. I believe there were a few questions in the chat. Let me see if I can find any. I think Ali, you had a question. How LMS platform looks, how does the LMS platform look on phones? So it is compatible with mobile devices, whether it be a tablet or a phone. The Moodle instance does have that opportunity. And we've also seen that aspect used with other groups that have used Moodle. Specifically, I would like to give a little shout out to Stripe. Stripe uses Moodle for their offering of their courses. And that was one of those key aspects that was necessary because of the work they're doing in the continent of Africa, was that it was able to be used in a mobile environment. So it is compatible with phone-based reading in that instance.
Oh, thank you. That's great. How about the language? Can it be 2 languages or more?
Yep. So with the instance or the course itself, we can change the language to be specific. So they do have a robust aspect where we can adjust the language for that course. One of the things that we actually are working on now is for 2 of the courses that we have a Spanish language version of it. And for some aspects, they've been translated, but for the LMS system as a whole, we were able to change the language to the specific language package that they had that was close to what was used by the interpreters on that end.
Sebastien, I see a question in the chat from Liz Chow.
Yep.
Liz, would you be able to come off mute?
Hi, yeah, I was kind of just curious about when you were transitioning between different LMS systems, like the transition and implementation, did you have someone in-house on your team that was very tech savvy? Like what kind of skills would a person need in order to successfully transition an LMS?
Yep. So we actually had myself and Andrew work on that transition. I would say I'm sorry, I'm like trying to count 13 years of online education experience. So I've worked with transitions before or migrations, and I've done different aspects in that area. So that was one of the good things about it. And Andrew also provided support on that end, but we weren't left alone, right? We still worked with our Moodle service provider to provide kind of a guideline or a structure so that we both were able to reach every aspect. So it was between ourselves and the Moodle service provider to get that going, and they were extremely helpful on that end.
And I'll chime in too. I'm going to turn off my video because my internet's unstable. Liz, your question was about the technology But also too, I want to reemphasize the point that Sebastien made about all of the other staff that's involved in the VTA. If you can imagine, maybe your experience with learning management systems has been as a student or as faculty in an academic program. And typically those academic programs would have course assistants and other people managing communications with learners and posting new content. And the VTA, all of the staff that were included in the gear diagram that Sebastien showed, the accessibility team, the course feeds, and the course managers, and monitoring and evaluation, those are all of the other non-technical roles that make our trainings possible. And so for new programs that are thinking about exploring opportunities for learning management and design, is thinking about some of those non-technical roles as well. Like who's going to manage the course, who's going to communicate with learners, who's going to be responsible for coming up with evaluation tools beyond those technical roles.
Awesome, thank you.
We had another question from Stacy Logan, and I think that's going to be the last question. Andrew?
I think we've got time for one more question before we close.
So I'll answer Stacy's really quickly. It was, are additional languages an additional cost? They are not. That's the great thing about the open source aspect of it. Someone created those language packages, so we can use them freely. So if you ever get a chance, once the Spanish language courses go live, you'll notice that for some of the system-wide changes for those courses, that's just the language pack that was created by someone, as well as the work of the program leads in that aspect, who are the interpreters for those two courses.
Well, great. We're just about at the top of the hour, and I want to close by saying thank you to everyone who spent your lunch break or your pre-lunch break or your post-lunch break with us today. We hope that you found this session informative. On behalf of IGHS and UPIEA, I'd like to thank today's presenter, Sebastien Auguste. Thank you so much for leading us in today's session, Sebastien. And just for everybody in the audience, if you would like to discuss opportunities for collaboration or just have some thought partners in the area of learning management and design for any of your training and educational programs, we'd be happy, more than happy to connect with you and start building that network of collaboration that Sebastien mentioned in this presentation. So we wish you all a great afternoon, and best wishes for the long weekend as well too. So everybody take care, and see you soon.